الرحيم نحمده ونصلي ونسلم على رسوله الكريم أما بعد رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. Dear respected honorable ulama, respected elders, brothers in Islam, sisters, mothers listening from home, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. عن عمر بن الخطاب رضي الله تعالى عنه قال بين نحن عند رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم ذات يوم إذا طلع علينا رجل شديد بياض الثياب شديد سواد الشعر لا يرى عليه أثر السفر ولا يعرفه منا أحد حتى جلس إلى النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم فأسند ركبتيه إلى ركبتيه ووضع كفيه على فخذيه وقال يا محمد أخبرني عن الإسلام. قال الإسلام أن تشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأن محمد رسول الله وتقيم الصلاة وتؤتي الزكاة وتصوم رمضان وتحج البيت إن استطعت إليه سبيلا. قال صدقت. فأجبنا له يسأله ويصدقه. قال فأخبرني عن الإيمان. قال أن تؤمن بالله وملائكته وكتبه ورسله واليوم الآخر وتؤمن بالقدر خيره وشره. قال صدقت. قال فأخبرني عن الإحسان. قال أن تعبد الله كأنك تراه فإن لم تكن تراه فإنه يراك. قال فأخبرني عن الساعة. قال ما المسؤول عنها بأعلم من السائل. قال فأخبرني عن أماراتها. قال أن تلد الأمة ربتها وأن ترى الحفاة العراة العلاة رعاء الشاة يتطاولون في البنيان. قال ثم انطلق فلبثت مليا ثم قال لي يا عمر أتدري من السائل؟ قلت الله ورسوله أعلم. قال فإنه جبريل أتاكم يعلمكم دينكم. رواه مسلم. My dear respected honorable listeners, this hadith that I have recited before you all is a very lengthy hadith, and this hadith or this dars will not complete in one lesson without doubt. Ulama have written books upon books just on this hadith. This hadith of Jibril, a very famous hadith which we'll find in the Sahih of Imam al-Bukhari, in the Sahih of Imam al-Muslim, and various other books of hadith. You will find this hadith. It is Sahih without doubt, and many of the Sahaba have narrated this hadith. What is the translation? Umar ibn al-Khattab radiyallahu ta'ala an, he is the narrator of this hadith. He says, one day when we were sitting with the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, there appeared before us a man dressed in extreme white clothes, whose hair was jet black. There were no signs of a journey on him, and none amongst us recognized him. He sat with the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. He sat with his knees in front of his knees, and he placed his hands on his thighs and said, O Muhammad, tell me about Islam. The Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam replied, Islam is to testify that there is no God but Allah Azza wa Jal, and Muhammad is the Messenger of Allah Azza wa Jal, to establish prayer, pay zakat, observe fasting in Ramadan, and perform pilgrimage, the Hajj, if you are able to. He said, you have spoken the truth. So we were surprised, and that he asked and affirms. This is just the amount that we will inshallah study today. This hadith, very comprehensive, very jami. It is commonly known as Hadith Jibril. Why? Because it is reported that Jibril alayhi salatu wassalam came down to relay the fundamentals of the deen to the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. The likes of Qadi Iyad, he says that due to this hadith addressing the outer and the inner acts of worship, it is also termed as ulum al-sharia. The entire deen can be learned from this one hadith of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. The likes of Imam al-Qurtubi rahimahullah ta'ala called this hadith Sunnah, the mother of all the sunnahs. Why? Because the entire life of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam can be found in this hadith. Some have also referred to this hadith as Jawami, the mother of all comprehensions. Everything, the entire deen can be found in this one hadith of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. This hadith that I had studied had been taken from the Kitab Mishkat. Accordingly, the author of Mishkat, Allama Badawi rahimahullah ta'ala, mentioned this hadith straight after the very first hadith, which is Hadith An-Niyyah. So you have the first hadith, which is Hadith An-Niyyah, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ إِلَى آخِرِ. Straight after, the author brings this hadith, the hadith of Jibril, the ulum al-sharia, the sunnah, the al-jawami. This is the hadith that the author brings. When did this occur? There is no definitive date as to when Jibril Amin alayhi salatu wassalam came to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Allah knows best. But the likes of Mullah Ali Qari rahimahullah ta'ala mentioned in their book Mirqat that this hadith was most likely revealed near the end part of the life of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. The likes of Hafiz ibn Hajar al-Asqalani rahimahullah also, they claim this, that this came in the latter part of the life of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Others, they mention that in the year 10th year after Hijri, but only Allah Azza wa Jalla knows exactly when this episode of the life of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam took place. But the most sahih or the most authentic saying is that it took place in the latter part of the life of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. A question can arise that why would this hadith not be revealed earlier? The entire deen is in this hadith. So why was this hadith not revealed at the beginning of Nubuwwah? It would have been much more easier for the Sahaba, for everyone, the Muslim at the time. Mullah Ali Qari rahimahullah ta'ala, he makes mention that throughout the period of Nubuwwah, while the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam was propagating the deen of Allah, Jibril, he came many a time with ahkamat, rulings. And this hadith came as a summary, to summarize the entire deen. So this hadith is the summary of all those ahkamat that Jibril Amin alayhi salatu wassalam had brought with him. Why? Because it is easier for even for us, when we study something and there's a summary, we understand the summary far better than everything we have studied. I remember in my iftar, there was a kitab by Mufti Taqi al-Usmani, very difficult kitab in iftar. And after every chapter there would be a summary, and I would wait for the summary because it was much more easier to take in rather than pages and pages of lessons from your teacher. Okay? So the likes of Mullah Ali Qari say that this was a summary of all those ahkamat that Jibril Amin alayhi salatu wassalam would bring down. And it was in a gathering, in majlis, okay, of people. There were so many people in this gathering when this episode took place in the life of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And another reason that they make mention that it had taken place in the latter part is that no one can say that anything from this hadith had been abrogated. A lot of the things came during the time of Nubuwwah. It became mansukh, it became abrogated. But this came at such a time, perfect time, when no one can say that something from this hadith was abrogated. So there is hikmah and wisdom in the way that Allah Azza wa Jalla works. This hadith covers three aspects. Number one, aqaid, iman. Number two, ahkam, ibadah. Number three is tasawwuf, ihsan. This hadith, what is the historical context? What is the shani wurud of this hadith? At the time of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, people used to come and ask him questions. Everyone. From amongst them, there were the Sahaba, genuine questions. There were those who were the munafiq, the hypocrites. They would come to take the mockery out of the deen, the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. They would come to waste time. So, Allah Azza wa Jalla is watching all this, that there are those who are serious, those who are taking the mockery. Allah Azza wa Jalla, He revealed the verse in Surah Ma'idah. يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا تسألوا عن أشياء إن تبد لكم تسؤكم وإن تسألوا عنها حين ينزل القرآن تبد لكم عفى الله عنها والله غفور حليم. After this verse of the Quran was revealed, the Sahabas became extremely careful in asking questions to the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. To an extent, the Messenger of Allah knew that the Sahaba were not asking him questions. So, there's a hadith recorded in the Sahih of Imam al-Muslim where he said, ask me questions. But the Sahaba, still out of fear of this verse, they will not ask questions to the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Due to this, that the Sahaba would not ask, Allah Azza wa Jalla, He sent Jibril Amin alayhi salatu wassalam to the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and this is where we find this hadith. Just before we go into the wording of the hadith, there is a word in another riwayah. Like I mentioned, this hadith comes in different books of hadith. There is the word barizan. We look and we see the humility of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Sahaba themselves, they created a platform where the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam could sit, and he could deliver his dars. He could talk to the people, because before that, he sallallahu alaihi wasallam would sit amongst the Sahaba. Anyone new that would come wouldn't even know who the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was. This was his humility, his humbleness. So then the Sahaba thought that we need to make some place where it's like stepping stone, where he sallallahu alaihi wasallam can sit, so people can recognize who the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is. The hadith goes on, إِذَا طَلَعَ عَلَيْنَا رَجُلٌ, suddenly a man appeared to us. Here the narrator uses the word طَلَعَ to allude to a heavenly object. At the time, the likes of Umar and the Sahaba, they didn't know who this person was. Obviously, by the end of the hadith, we know that the Messenger of Allah says that this was Jibril. So, when someone comes, they just come. But he just appeared out of the ordinary. No one knew of him, no one had seen him. Okay? So the narrator is trying to paint a picture here. Out of nowhere, this heavenly, because Jibril is an angel. Okay, he has angelic features. Not at that time, but he is a heavenly person. So the narrator is trying to get the audience to understand. This is because the being who came from above was none other than Jibril Amin alayhi salatu wassalam. Just in the first part of the hadith, one of the great lessons we learn is the adab and the etiquette of a student and a student with his teacher. The narrator then describes Jibril alayhi salatu wassalam. From these descriptions of Jibril, we understand how a student should look like. Number one, a genuine time of seeking knowledge is in your young age. As the hadith mentioned, Shadid Sawad al-Sha'r, that his hair, the narrator doesn't just say black, it was very black. Means he was very young. They showed the etiquette of a student, that you should be in your young age, you should go and seek the knowledge of Islam, seek the knowledge of Deen. Number two, one seeking knowledge should be clean, as mentioned in the narration of Nasa'i. Your apparel, your clothes, your garment has an impact on one's spirituality. He came with white clothes, very white. That's why we in the maktab and madrasas, we have a uniform, white hat, white thawb. It's more clean. Because once a mark goes on, you want to clean it. What does that represent? When we sin, we try to clean our heart. The deen teaches us everything. We have to ponder. The deen teaches everything. Number 3, we learn listen attentively from one's teacher. فَأَسْنَدَ رُكْبَتَيْ إِلَىٰ رُكْبَتَيْ. The way Jibril sat with the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Regarding the white clothes, Mullah Ali Qari rahimahullah, he says, ideally a student should wear white clothing. Okay, like I mentioned, because when he has a mark, he should go and clean it, and it represents or is similar to the way of the heart. When you sin, you should go and clean and do the dhikr or whatever method to clean that sin from your heart. Hafiz ibn Hajar Asqalani mentioned the same thing. And he also mentions the reason why Jibreel came with white clothes. Because as an angel, he's made from light. And light is white. This is why he came dressed as such. As mentioned, he had jet black hair. This is an indication of youth and strength, which are qualities found in angels and who are strong creation of Allah Azza wa Jal. The hadith continues. Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu ta'ala an, he says, لا يرى عليه أثر السفر. That the man came, there was no sign of journey apparent upon him. So if there was no sign, they're living in the deserts, white clothes, not a single dirt on his clothes. So anyone would think that this person is local. He's from Medina. But no one seemed to recognize this person that came to the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. وَلَا يُعْرِفُهُ مِنَّا أَحَدٍ. No one recognized him. Not a single person. This negates the assumption that this man was from the local area. If he was from local, at least one person would know him. Not a single person knew him. So the question arises, Umar ibn al-Khattab is the narrator of the hadith. He says no one recognized him. Ahad. No, not a single person recognized him. So the question can arise, how is Umar saying that no one recognized him? He should speak for himself. Why is he speaking for everyone? So Hafiz ibn Hajar al-Asqalani rahimahullah ta'ala, he says that Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu said that no one knew him as an educated guess. He just guessed that no one knew him. As Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu was amongst those who were the most well known. So if Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu knew you, every single person knew you. Okay, he was very, very well known amongst the Sahaba. Also, it can be said that due to the reaction of the people, when this Jibreel came in a human form, everyone was nudging, everyone looking around, who is this person? From this, it is evident that no one knew who this person was. It is stated in Fathul Bari that the exchanged looks were that of when a stranger appears. Initially, we find that even the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam didn't recognize Jibreel alayhi salatu wasalam. From this we learn he must not have come in his usual form of Dihya al-Qalbi. When Jibreel alayhi salatu wasalam would come as in a human form, he would come in the form of a Sahabi called Dihya al-Qalbi. But initially we know that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam did not even recognize him. So we know that some say that he didn't even come in the form of Dihya al-Qalbi, someone else. We know generally Jibreel alayhi salatu wasalam would come in a human form as Dihya al-Qalbi. Allama Badruddin Aini mentions regarding Dihya al-Qalbi, just a side note, that he was so handsome that the women of Medina, they would peep out of their home just to get a glance at the face of Dihya al-Qalbi. So Dihya al-Qalbi would have to cover his face. Why? Fitna, to make sure that there is no fitna caused. This is a man, Dihya al-Qalbi, covering his face. Okay, this was in the time of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. The hadith goes on, فَأَسْنَدَ رُكْبَتَيْهِ إِلَى رُكْبَتَيْهِ. He placed his knees on the knees of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. What does this mean? How did this happen? Allama Rashid Ahmad Gangohi rahimahullah says, this does not refer to when one touches one kneecap with the other person's kneecap. Rather, it is an indication to his closeness in sitting. Indicates how close Jibril alayhi salatu wasalam was to the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Mullah Ali Qari says he sat in a manner in which a man will sit in a prayer in tashahhud, and this is the most humbling position for a man to sit. The closeness or this closeness that had taken place between Jibril and the Messenger of Allah sallallahu showed the man's need and eagerness in seeking knowledge. And a person who's very close, he wants to learn, he shows his eagerness. This is the reason why Jibril alayhi salatu wasalam did this. On this point of sitting with good manners, Hafiz ibn Hajar, the likes of Hafiz ibn Hajar, they weren't just some random people. They would look at hadith, dissect them, and teach us lessons. So he says, he points out, he's seeing the way that this man comes in, and there's more that we'll go into, but he's sitting with respect. It doesn't make any sense. He acts like a Bedouin 1 second. Bedouin have no respect in them. He acts like a Bedouin 1 minute. 1 minute he's got the utmost respect. This subtle point, there are so much to learn from. وَوَضَعَ كَفَّيْهِ عَلَى فَخِذَيْهِ. He placed his palms on his thighs. Whose? Then the tashreeh takes place. The commentary takes place. They make mention that the letter ha in the word fakhidhay refers to either Jibril putting his hands on his own thighs or the thighs of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. The likes of Imam al-Nawawi make mention that it is more preferred to say that he put his palm on his own thigh. Okay, this is more humble. Imam al-Baghawi, he says in his Sharh al-Sunnah that it refers to the thigh of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and this is supported in some of the other narrations. Question arises, I'm sitting with someone, I want to learn. I'm sitting in tashahhud, I put my hands on his thigh. Isn't this disrespectful? Where is the manners? Some say that this was only done to get the attention of the Messenger of Allah. That for a split second he put his hand on the thighs, on the blessed thighs of the Messenger of Allah just to get his attention, then he had placed it back on his own thighs. Okay? Just to show the importance what is about to be discussed, or to hide. Bear in mind, Jibril is an angel. Maybe he did it to hide some of his angelic features. Some say that for a short time he had it on the Messenger of Allah thighs. Some say he also had it on his own thighs. There's different narrations in how this had taken place. Then he says, قَالَ Muhammad, Ya Muhammad. Now remember I said, he acts like a Bedouin 1 second. 1 second he's got so much respect. He says, Oh Muhammad. At that time, no one would call the Messenger of Allah by his name. Ya Rasulullah. This was respectful. But he said, Ya Muhammad, O Muhammad. To call the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam by his name is considered against man, absolute disrespectful, against the manners. This is discouraged. Even in the Quran, Allah Azza wa Jalla, He tells us, لا تجعلوا دعاء الرسول بينكم كدعاء بعضكم بعضا قد يعلم الله الذين يتسللون منكم لواذا فليحذر الذين يخالفون عن أمره أن تصيبهم فتنة أو يصيبهم عذاب أليم. So 1 minute he's acting like a Bedouin, or 1 minute he's got the most respect. Okay? The likes of Hafiz ibn Hajar, when they're studying this hadith, they're baffled. Why is this person doing this? Some narrations of this same hadith, we find that Jibril did say, Ya Rasulullah. Okay? Some narrations say, Ya Rasulullah and Ya Muhammad. He used both of them. Some make mention, because the word Muhammad is ma'na wasafi. Okay? It means the praised one. The word or the name Muhammad means the praised one. So some say that Jibril maybe said Ya Muhammad and had the intention of this meaning of the praised one. And then it become absolutely respectful. Okay? There's another part here which I wrote in my notes where Jibril, or a question arises that in this version of the hadith, Jibreel alayhi salatu wasalam, he didn't give salam to the Messenger of Allah. Why did he not give salam to the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam? Again, to show his Bedouin side. Because they had no respect. That is some of the answers that the people give. Then he starts his questioning. Jibreel starts, أخبرني عن الإسلام. Tell me about Islam. Some narrations state, Mal Islam. What is Islam? For this hadith, we find different sequences in the questioning of Jibreel alayhi salatu wasalam. This is considered to be changes made by the narrator themselves. Narrated themselves, they changed the sequences because of their own reasons. Maybe something was more important than others. Okay? And there is nothing wrong with that. Because the context of the hadith is still sahih and from the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. For instance, in Bukhari and Muslim, one of the order is as follows: Iman, then Islam and Ihsan. While another narration of Muslim also has Islam, then Iman and Ihsan. There are also narrations with the order Islam, Ihsan and Iman, as mentioned in Fath al-Bari. Though the captive to Iman, Islam and Ihsan can be understood to have done so to place the asr, the core, first, the presentation of Islam second, and the combination of both Ihsan last. The order of Mishkat, this hadith that we took, is perfectly fine, which is Islam, then Iman, and then Ihsan. Allama Tibi rahimahullah ta'ala, he mentioned that Islam is connected to the Zahir. The Islam aspect is connected to the Zahir, the outer, whilst Iman is with the Batin, the inner. We know that the Batin is more important. But we have to give detailed account of the Zahir, that which is on the outer. The Messenger of Allah, when he gets this question from Jibreel, he said, Al-Islam, an tashhada an la ilaha illallah, all the way to the end. That Islam is to testify that there is none worthy of worship but Allah. And the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the Messenger and the Rasul of Allah Azza wa Jal. In the Bukhari, the wordings are different, but similar to the effect, أن تعبد الله ولا تشرك به. Here, in this part of the hadith, what do we learn? The belief in Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, establishing salah, this is Islam, giving zakat, fasting in the month of Ramadan, performing hajj if one can do so. What is Islam? Islam is to obey the dictates, those things that Allah Azza wa Jalla has commanded, and to follow the Messenger of Allah openly, not to hide, not to be shy, to openly follow the life of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to submit to whatever is the hukum of Allah Azza wa Jalla. This hadith is lengthy. I've not even touched upon anything yet. I will finish very soon and we'll continue with the Islam part in the next session. Just finally, I will mention Islam requires iqrar bil lisan, okay, which is the verbally admitting one's faith for the validity of ahkam al-dunawiyya, that everything we do in this world, no matter what we do, I love that sometimes we do things which are not deen. For example, work, some type of work might not be in Islam, but we still are Muslims. We still, with our tongues, we believe in Allah Azza wa Jal. We believe in Islam. Shah Waliullah rahimahullah ta'ala, he says in his kitab, Hujjatullah al-Baligha, all actions of Islam come under 6 actions. Number 1, salah, zakat, fasting, hajj, jihad, and qurbani. Inshallah, if Allah Azza wa Jalla brings us together again, will continue with this aspect of this hadith, Islam. Inshallah, we pray that Allah Azza wa Jalla allows us to implement this entire hadith in our life. We all say Ameen. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi